But first of all, let me go to Dublin and speak to Mark Dorman, who's down there at the Croke Park Museum. Mark, good morning.
Good morning, hi.
Mark, I'm interested in this particular strand that's happening within the museum, the Fighting Irishmen. It really is a great history of boxing.
It is. It's an exhibition, actually. It just opened last night, and we've taken it from the Irish Arts Centre in New York. And it's celebrating Celtic prize winners from 1820 right up to now. And really what it's telling is the story of Irish emigration, assimilation, their eventual success, and really told through the sport of boxing, because the Irish, with the bare knuckle fighting, and then obviously when we progressed on to gloves, Irish boxers were right up there with the very best.
And the Fighting Irishmen, is that where it comes from, the Fighting Irish? That I always thought it was because they got involved in brawls in bars and saloons, but they pursued the sport worldwide at a very early stage.
Oh yeah, very much so. And when you look at the artifacts that are on display, it brings you through all the greats. John Sullivan, Jack Dempsey, Gene Tunney. And you go back, and I was just looking here earlier, 1892, there's a fight, which John L. Sullivan is in. The prize fund in 1892 was $25,000. So it was far from sort of barroom brawls that they're involved in.
Just say again, because it broke up slightly, how much?
$25,000.
In which year?
In 1892.
That's a world fortune.
It is, absolutely. And the ticket, and I'm looking at a ticket here, the ticket for that fight was $15.
It's amazing, isn't it? Was it really the preserve of the wealthy following fighting?
I was talking with Jim Hulin, who's the curator who brought it over from New York last night at the opening, and just particularly about that, because that caught my eye. And he said, okay, a ticket at 15, that was obviously the ringside, so that was the preserve of the rich. But some of these venues, no more than Croke Park itself, held 80 and 100,000, so there were seats at 50 cent or a dollar, but you were paying up to 15, and that one was John Sullivan versus Jazz Corbett, and that was the heavyweight championship of the world in 1892. At
the exhibition you have, of course, some of the really big attractions. One of them, some items belonging to the great Muhammad Ali.
We do indeed, yeah. Muhammad Ali fought here in Croke Park, and he fought here in 1972. Well, we've got the program, we've got the trunks, we've got the gloves, the ticket, all signed by Ali himself. He fought Al Blue Lewis. Not a very successful fight in terms of financial. It didn't work out that well for the promoter, but that, I suppose, gave us the germ of the idea to look at what else we could do, because obviously Croke Park is about Gaelic games, but so this is a new venture for us, looking at the sport of boxing. But I think too, also, if you look at kind of since 1923, when Ireland has fought under the Irish flag, if you like, at the Olympics, we've won 20 medals, and 13 of those have actually been in the sport of boxing. So it is our most successful sport.
There's no doubt some of our finest sportsmen come from the boxing arena. Is there something about a mummified arm down there?
There is indeed, yeah. The famous Dan Donnelly. He was a bare knuckle fighter and Dublin man, born in 1788. And according to the story, he rose to the defence of his ailing father, who was being bullied in a pub. It's turned to blows, and eventually this marked him out as the beginning of a legend. And he went on to become a real top class fighter, if you like. Now, fighting in that time, the fights were to the finish. Literally, there was no gloves. There was gouging, there was biting, there was even worse forms of attack were permitted. But he went on in 1815. He challenged the leading English prize fighter, George Cooper, and that fight took place down in Kilcullen in County Kildare. There was a natural amphitheatre there. It's now known as Donnelly's Hollow, and that went to 11 rounds, and he beat him in a knockout. And then he went on to beat the next English challenger, a guy called Tom Oliver, in 34 rounds. But he had a fairly fast life. There was a lot of fighting, there was a lot of hard drinking, and what goes with it as well. And he died actually in 1820. He was only 32. But a huge funeral here in Dublin. There was 80,000 attended his funeral.
A typical Irish legend. When you do it like that, you always become a legend in this part of the world.
And as was common at the time, grave robbers took his body a few days later, and it was because of the length of his arm. That was what they were after. But his corpse was traced to the home of a Dublin surgeon, and he only agreed to give it back on the condition that he could amputate and keep the arm. And that was agreed, and the arm was mummified. So I'm just looking at it here. We have it here in the exhibition, and it's 96.5 centimeters long. And I measured my own arm up against it, and I'm 71 centimeters. So I'm kind of average. So I suppose people might be up to between 65 and 75 centimeters. So it's a long arm. So you can see why he was so successful.
And is his fist opened or closed?
His fist is slightly curled. His forefinger is extended, and the three other fingers are slightly curled. But it's perfect. It's intact. The nails are there. Everything. That sounds a bit macabre.
Macabre is the word. How long is that exhibition open for in Croke Park?
The exhibition is open until the end of August, and indeed, there's a couple of things that would be interesting to your listeners, apart from being very local on it, in terms of Freddie Gilroy, the famous Belfast fighter who fought in Melbourne in '56. His glove here, which he gave to Liam Neeson when Liam Neeson was a boy, your Ballymena boy, so he has lent them to us. And Charlie Nash, who fought from Derry, and he fought in '72 in Munich. And he was beaten actually by the gold medalist, who went on to be the gold medalist. So his gloves and vests are here. So there's a huge amount. And then obviously Barry McGuigan, we've got everything from that famous fight in June '85 when he beat Pedrosa in Loftus Road.
It's an incredible number of attractions, along with all the other obvious attractions down there at the GAA Museum. Mark, thanks for speaking to us this morning.
Not at all. You're more than welcome.
Cheers, fella. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Mark Dorman down there at the Croke Park Museum. If you're into your boxing, that is a must for you. 13 minutes to 12 is the time.